welcome back to another episode of Is Fitz Happy. I'm Luke.
And I'm Emma.
And this week we're discussing Chapter 5 of Fool's Errand, the Tawny Man. Everyone has been waiting for this nice little reintroduction of the Fool.
Yes, we finally get to re-meet the Fool.
Mm-hmm.
And this is even better because last chapter we ended with the whole Jenna saying that the true love of Fitz's life will weave its way back in soon. And here it is.
Here it is. So first we have an epigraph. Of course, in all of the Fitz books, it starts with that little italic section at the start of a chapter. And this one is about the history of the wit and how it was not always a despised magic in the Six Duchies. Some of the earliest histories, may not be completely accurate, but there are enough of them where it's kind of accepted that at some point in the hunter-gatherer phase, with some cultivation of farmland, but mostly the hunter-gatherer phase of the Six Duchies, Old Blood, the wit, was not reviled. It was kind of common for villages to have that.
And it's also said that the reason the witted people go by the Old Blood is because they are the indigenous people to the land. They were the first there, and that the newcomers were the people who didn't have the wit, and they joined the group.
Yeah. So this epigraph says that some of these scrolls indicate that they're the original inhabitants, and that may be the source of the name. So it didn't really happen until, was it King Charger, Prince Charger? King Charger, the so-called piebald prince, that they start finding, violence against witted people.
Yes, and it does say before that, any executions against a witted person seem to be written about because it was so rare for them to have used their wit in a way that would warrant execution. And whereas after the piebald prince, there are more
assumptions of
vile
guilty
and
because
nature.
They had it.
Yes, and that some whole villages were wiped out during this time period. Mm-hmm. And then after that, there either was not very many people left, or they were too scared to admit that they had the wit, and so it kind of died away, and that's why there was sort of a lull in killings of people with the wit, because it sort of went back to obscurity.
Mm-hmm. Then we join back with Fitz, who's in the middle of summer and falling into a beautiful routine with Nighteyes, doing a bunch of chores and going hunting in the evening during the summer nights. And by all accounts, he says that he should have been enjoying this. He should have been loving this. He should have been content. And he says, some days I was almost content.
Right. He also mentions that peace but waited for me to give myself up to it. The fault was in me that I held back from it.
Yeah.
So really sad, because even when Fitz could have peace, he's keeping himself from it and then blaming himself for not enjoying the peace.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes he finds himself kind of idly playing with Jenna's charm and just looking down the lane waiting. He doesn't really know what he's waiting for. He says it's Hap. He's waiting for Hap to return, but then he also remarks on, okay, I hope the boy succeeds in what he's doing, but then I'm just going to be waiting for him to come back and then waiting for him to leave immediately to his apprenticeship. So I don't know. What am I doing then? Waiting for something more?
Right. And what is that something more? Why is there anything I need to be waiting for?
Mm-hmm. Something more, my heart suggested, and then it would be time for something more after Hap leaves. But I could not put my finger on what stirred this restlessness in my soul. At the moments when I became conscious of that suspension, all of life chafed against me. Then the wolf would heave himself to his feet with a sigh and come to lean against me. A thrust of his muzzle would put his broad-skulled head under my hand. Stop longing. You poison today's ease, reaching always for tomorrow. The boy will come back when he comes back. What is there to grieve over in that? There is nothing wrong with either of us. Tomorrow will come soon enough, one way or another. I knew he was right, and I would, usually, shake it off and go back to my chores. Once, I admit, I walked down to my bench overlooking the sea, but all I did was sit down on it and stare out across the water. I did not attempt to skill. Perhaps after all these years, I was finally learning that there was no comfort for loneliness in such reaching.
So, I quick wanted to talk about that that he went down to the bench but didn't skill is perhaps the reason why sometimes the skill gets so strong, the longing for the skill gets so strong because someone actually is reaching out, like his children, unknowingly. And so then
Possibly.
he gets that feeling of needing to use the skill because he can feel them reaching. He just doesn't register it because it's not somebody trained in the skill. They're not purposely trying to reach out to him with the skill. It
Right.
just awakens that hunger in him. You know what I mean?
It could be. It could be. Maybe not even right at that instant because sometimes that hunger lasts for days. But
Right.
recently there was some sort of reaching out and it kind of brushed against his abilities.
Right. But
that
I
could be.
mean, yeah, but I mean, think about it when you're a kid, especially, like you get hurt and or you're mad about some punishment your parents give you because it's unfair and doesn't make any sense when you're a child. And I could see how if you were naturally gifted in something like the skill, you would reach out when you're hurt, and that could last a few days if your feelings were hurt bad enough, or if you're scared or lonely or whatever. I mean, I don't know. I just think potentially that's why he's struggling so hard with random bouts. Because I know I've also proposed a theory that it's this sudden increase of it could be because of the world needing him to become the catalyst again. But it could also be his children becoming of an age where the skill is getting stronger and they're
Right.
reaching out without knowing.
Yeah, could be.
So I don't know.
Yeah, we know that they have dreams of, Wolf Father.
Yes.
And have linked in their dreams before.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's just my little personal tinfoil hat theory.
Yeah. So Fitz is remarking on what they're doing during the evenings as well. He does the chores during the day, and at the end of the evenings, it's rest well earned because he's doing what he's supposed to be doing. He's finishing up repairs on the old cottage. He's taking down the fish that he smoked and putting them away, and he remarks that all of the smoking for the rest of winter of what they need is complete now. And so he offers up to Nighteyes, "Shall we get up early tomorrow and go looking for a wild pig?" "I didn't lose any wild pigs, did you?" I looked down at him in surprise. It was a refusal, couched as humor, but a refusal all the same. I had expected wild enthusiasm. In truth, I myself had little appetite for such a strenuous hunt as a pig would demand. I had offered it to the wolf in the hope of pleasing him. I had sensed a certain listlessness in him of late, and suspected that he mourned Hap's absence. The boy had been a lively hunting companion for him. I feared that in comparison I was rather dull. I know he felt my query as I gazed at him, but he had retreated into his own mind, leaving only a distracted haze of thoughts. "Are you well?" I asked him anxiously. And he turned his head sharply toward the door. "Someone comes." That gets interrupted.
Yes. And this is sort of an emerging pattern with Nighteyes. Something is definitely off with Nighteyes.
Yeah.
I believe this to be him knowing he's getting old and reaching the end of his days.
Yeah, he knows he doesn't, like, he could probably hunt a pig and they could
Right.
probably kill it, but why at this point?
Yeah.
He doesn't need to do that strenuous activity for a little different meat.
Yeah. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
No, we definitely see that Nighteyes, especially in this chapter, it becomes really evident that he is just getting older and he's not really the young pup he once was. And he's much more content to sort of stay in one place.
And I think that's also why he kind of pushed back and argued with Fitz about Hap leaving as well, not understanding it, because that was the way of Pack. Hap is then supposed to provide for him. He's not supposed to keep doing the hunting and everything
Right.
all on his own with Fitz as well. They're just supposed to enjoy their old age because they raised the next hunter.
Yes, exactly.
So it just doesn't make sense to him. And now he's like, well, I'm comfortable here. Yes, we lost some of our strength. And it may be human ways, but why would I, go out of my way to do more strenuous things?
Yes.
He's just, he's aging. So Fitz, of course, is all excited at the news that someone is coming, and he immediately asks Hap, and then Nighteyes replies, "A horse." So now they don't know who it is. The door was left ajar before, so Nighteyes goes out and goes into the forest to kind of parallel the horse that's coming up the track. Fitz sends out Starling, and Nighteyes replies, "Not the howling bitch." He did not disguise his relief that it was not the minstrel. That stung a bit. Only recently had I fully realized how much he had disliked her. I said nothing aloud, nor did I form the thought toward him, but he knew. He cast me an apologetic glance, then ghosted out of the house. So yeah, Nighteyes still does not like Starling.
Yes, and he never really got over that, apparently. Yep. So there is a stranger approaching, and as Fitz is watching, he notes that whoever this stranger is, they have a really good horse.
Yeah, of course, in Fitz fashion, the horse is the first thing that he notices. The quality of her breeding shouted from her every line. She was white, her snowy mane and tail flowed as if she had been groomed but moments before. Silky black tassels bound in her mane complemented the black and silver of her harness. She was not a large mare, but there was a fire in the way she turned a knowing eye and a wary ear toward the invisible wolf that flanked her through the wood. She was alert without being afraid. She began to lift her hooves a bit higher, as if to assure Nighteyes that she had plenty of energy to either fight or flee. And then turns his sight to the rider.
Yes, who is fully worthy of the horse.
He sat her well, and I sensed a man in harmony with his mount. His garments were black, trimmed in silver, as were his boots. It sounds a somber combination. Did not the silver run riot as embroidery around his summer cloak, and silver edge the white lace at his cuffs and throat? Silver bound his fair hair back from his high brow. Fine black gloves coated his hands like a second skin. He was a slender youth, but just as the lightness of his horse prompted one to think of swiftness, so did his slimness call to mind agility rather than fragility. His skin was a sun-kissed gold, as was his hair, and his features were fine. The Tawny Man approached silently save for the rhythmic striking of his horse's hooves. When he drew near, he reined in his beast with a touch, and sat looking down on me with amber eyes. He smiled. Something turned over in my heart. I moistened my lips, but could find no words nor breath to utter them if I had. My heart told me one thing, my eyes another. Slowly the smile faded from his face and his eyes. A still mask replaced it. When he spoke, his voice was low, his words emotionless. "Have you no greeting for me, Fitz?" I opened my mouth, then helplessly spread wide my arms. At the gesture that said all I had no words for, an answering look lit his face. And he doesn't dismount, but flings himself from the horse, and only his agility saves him and wraps himself in a hug with Fitz. And Nighteyes, of course, is charging from the woods to join him, and he's gamboling around like a puppy.
Yes, just very excited. Got the zoomies.
Yes, exactly. The horse is shying away, of course, from this display and the jumping of the rider and the wolf suddenly appearing, but no one's paying the horse any mind anymore.
Yes. So this is the fool.
"Oh, fool," I choked, "it cannot be you, yet it is, and I do not care how."
It's crazy to me. I mean, okay, I'm going to start by prefacing. I am somebody who definitely believes that Fitz and the fool are like soulmates, that they are meant to be together. So I'm reading it through that lens, which may give me more leniency towards reading things this way. But with that description of seeing Fool again for the first time, like his heart skips a beat, his mouth goes dry, and he just opens his arms up for a hug. It just screams to me like so much love, a depth of care. Mm-hmm. And throughout this chapter, even, we just have this sense of the fool just fits. There's he just fits right into his life, and he's just part of this trio seamlessly. And I think it's really interesting to have that happen and then not call that like a deep love. You know what I mean? Like, I guess.
Well, I think that's the point that Robin Hobb is writing, right? That there is a deep love between them.
Yes.
I think her thing about it was that it was not a romantic love.
Yeah.
Although there might be pining on Fool's side, but yeah, I think she has stated that her intention was that Fitz was a heterosexual man.
Yeah.
and it was just a deep love of friendship.
Right.
But
yeah,
the
because
descriptions...
this is how I treat all my friends. Every time I see them, my heart skips a beat and I just can't even say anything because I'm so shocked to see them, you know.
Yeah,
for sure. Just two bros, just hanging out, being bros.
Eventually, the fool breaks the hug and gets down to hug Nighteyes because Nighteyes is kind of worming his way in between the two of them. So the fool also gives Nighteyes a big hug and says, "Well met, old friend. I had not thought to see you again." And he's wiping away his tears, and Fitz doesn't think less of him because his own tears are streaming down his face. He flowed to his feet. Every nuance of his grace is familiar to me as the drawing of breath. He cupped the back of my head and, in his old way, pressed his brow to mine. His breath smelled of honey and apricot brandy. Had he fortified himself against this meeting? After a moment, he drew back from me, but kept a grip on my shoulders. They stare at each other for a while, and Fitz remarks that he has physically changed so much.
And yet hasn't changed at the same time.
Yes.
He looks just as young as he did when he last left. There's no wrinkles on his face at all. He looks young.
"Well, will you ask me in?" he demanded. "Of course, as soon as we've seen to your horse." The wide grin lit his face, erased all years and distance between us. "You've not changed a bit, Fitz. Horse is first, as it ever was with you." "Not changed? You are the one who looks not a day older. But all else..." He shakes his head and indicates the horse there. "You've gone gold, fool, and you dress richly as Regal once did. When first I saw you, I did not know you. Then it was not as I feared, that you were wary of welcoming me?" Such a question did not even deserve an answer. So Fitz ignores it and turns to the horse, trying to gather the reins, while Nighteyes is stalking the horse and scaring it and making it dance away from Fitz.
Yes. So what a Nighteyes response, though, in that like he's annoyed by the question, so doesn't answer it.
Yes, I know. Eventually, Fitz snaps at Nighteyes. "You're not helping and you know it." The wolf dropped his head and gave me a knowing glance, but he stopped his stalking. "I could put her in the barn myself if you but gave me the chance." And the fool cocks his head slightly, regarding both of them quizzically. I felt something from him, the thinnest knife-edge of shared awareness. I almost forgot the horse. Without volition, I touched the mark he had left upon me so long ago, the silver fingerprints on my wrist, long faded to a pale gray. He smiled again and lifted one gloved hand, the finger extended toward me, as if he would renew that touch. "And the fool says that all down the years, you have been with me as close as the tips of my fingers, even when we were years and seas apart. Your being was like the hum of a plucked string at the edge of my hearing, or a scent carried on a breeze. Did not you feel it so?" Fitz takes a breath, fearing his words would hurt the fool, and says, "No, I wish it had been so. Too often I felt myself completely alone, save for Nighteyes. Too often I've sat at the cliff's edge, reaching out to touch anyone, anywhere, yet never sensing that anyone reached back to me."
Okay, once again, adding to this little tinfoil hat theory I have, what if every time he felt that longing, not every time, but some of the times he felt that longing was from the fool reaching out at that connection?
Yeah, could be too.
And it would make sense that there isn't a connection back, because fool continues and says, "Had I possessed the skill and truth, you would have known I was there at your very fingertips, but mute." So fool seems to think that the lack of mutual feeling is because he doesn't have skill to be able to truly converse with Fitz.
And that's definitely true.
Yeah. But I don't know. It's just interesting.
Could be. Interesting. Fitz feels an odd easing at Fool's words there, and I think that odd easing is Fitz's fear of not being accepted by anyone in the past, because like he left his life behind, so everyone must have left him behind.
Yes.
Him feeling so lonely. Finally, there's someone that he did love and who was a big part of his life say that, "Yeah, I was thinking about you
The whole time.
and you'd have felt me too if like I could have had the skill."
Yeah.
You know? If we could have connected in truth, like you wouldn't have been alone all these years. Like I was there. And Fitz is like, Oh, wonderful. Someone else was thinking of the past sometimes. That's cool.
Yeah. Which, like, also other people do that.
Right. I know. It's just
But-
like that vocal confirmation, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Fitz just doesn't understand that people can love him back.
Yeah. I don't know. But he does accept it from the Fool, which I think is really interesting because I feel as though if that was anyone else, he wouldn't have accepted it as like reassurance. He would have just said, oh, they're just saying that. You know what I mean? Like it feels like
I think he would have accepted it from Kettrikin too.
maybe, yeah. I don't know. It just feels like this relationship with the Fool is just so different than every other relationship he has that he can trust that the Fool is saying that, saying what he means. Whereas with other people, he'd be like, oh, they're just saying that because they feel bad or something. You know what I mean?
So then the Fool calls over the horse. The horse, of course, answers immediately and goes over to the Fool. And the Fool hands the reins over to Fitz and says, take her for a ride. See what she can do. She's an excellent animal. And it sparks like a boy's feeling in Fitz. And that's kind of brought up multiple times over this chapter, is that it feels so comfortable and familiar, and it just reminds him of being a youth with a friend. It's that sharing of a prized possession of just like, hey, you get to try it out now too.
Right. But I wonder too if this sort of theme of I feel like a boy again, like Fool makes me feel like a boy again. I'm just a boy when I'm around him. Like this is how young boys feel. This is not how adults feel. I wonder if part of that is because this is the first time since his youth that he's actually gotten to be Fitz. I mean,
true, yeah.
With Starling, he couldn't just be Fitz. He was Fitz the hero that she came to sleep with every once in a while. It wasn't that deep of a connection. I mean, they were friendly and friends, and I don't doubt that they had a relationship, but it just didn't have very deep roots. And he hasn't really seen anybody else besides Hap, and Hap doesn't know who he is. That's just his dad.
And with Chade, he resumed his position as student and as Chade's boy, but like that was FitzChivalry Farseer, the bastard of the royal family, not Fitz.
Yeah, and then here he's like, oh, I feel like such a boy. And I wonder if really that's just feeling that relief of being alive.
He has permission to be who he was.
Yes, and I think he just hasn't had that in so long that he's equating that with the childlike. And some of it does, come across as stuff that you do when you're a kid or you believe when you're a kid for sure. But I think mostly it's coming from a place of he's finally able to be Fitz again.
Right.
There is no other layer to that. It's just Fitz. And the last time he could do that was 15 years ago. So of course he's like, oh, I feel like a child again. Because the last time he got to be Fitz, he was a child.
Fool's pulling up like, I got this really cool Razor scooter for Christmas. You can take it for a spin around the block.
Yeah. Go for it.
So Fitz jumps up on the horse and immediately, despite how long it's been since he rode a horse, immediately can tell the differences between Sudi and this horse here. I felt clumsy and heavy-handed as I urged her forward, then spun her about with a touch of the rein. I shifted my weight and took in the rein, and she backed without hesitation. A foolish grin came over my face. She could equal Buckkeep's best when Burek had the stable's prime, I admitted to him. I set my hand to her withers and felt the dancing flame of her eager little mind. There was no apprehension in her, only curiosity. The wolf sat on the porch watching me gravely. Take her down the lane, the Fool urged me, his grin mirroring mine, and give her a free head. Let her show you what she can do. What's her name? Malta. I named her myself. I bought her in Shokes on my way here. And Fitz nods and says, yeah, in Shokes they breed them a little bit lighter so they can travel pretty much all day.
And eat less food and all that. So, but it is funny. We get a little Malta name drop.
names a very pretty, petite, fiery horse after Malta.
Very fitting.
Yeah.
Although I don't know that Malta would agree.
Right. And it is funny because, like, they don't know each other that well.
No. I mean, as far as we know, Beloved has had one encounter with Malta.
And, a bit after the war, I think, but like probably just chance meetings. Like once in a while, just like being around in the same room, not the serious talks.
Yeah. I mean, maybe they did. It could have happened off screen, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's really funny. Because I never really thought about that either.
Yeah, that like they didn't have much time together.
Mm-hmm.
I guess, I mean, he's pretty good friends with Althea, so maybe he feels as though he knows her better because of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, true.
I don't know.
I need to see some of that relationship, not just the weird encounter on Paragon.
True.
One time.
To be fair, she's always around when they're doing the deals, and she's around when Malta's around.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
So Fitz whispers Malta into the horse's ear, and the horse takes that as permission and just leaps off. He gets to the end of his lane where it meets the road, and then he sits there for a while staring at it. And Fitz says that the change in perspective altered his whole sense of the world around him. Astride this fine animal, the road was like a ribbon unfurled before me. The day was fading, but even so, I blinked in the gentling light, seeing possibilities in the bluing hills and the mountains edging into the evening horizon. The horse between my thighs brought the whole world closer to my door. I sat her quietly and let my eyes travel a road that could eventually take me back to Buckkeep, or indeed to anywhere in the entire world. My quiet life in the cabin with Hap seemed as tight and confining as an outworn skin. I longed to writhe like a snake and cast it off, to emerge gleaming and new into a wider world. Eventually the horse kind of shakes her mane, and Fitz realizes how long he's been daydreaming, and then just lets her trot back up at her own pace to the cabin. So the change in perspective there, he just kind of sees that he is restless. He does want to leave the cabin.
He does have a small, confined life
that
is cut off from everything else.
So he gets back up to the cottage, and the fool peeks his head out and is like, I put the kettle on. Bring me in my saddle pack, would you? There's Bingtown coffee in it. So, of course, Fitz stables the horse as well as he can.
Cleans her up and gives her food and talks about how his horse doesn't care about the type of food it gets. It kind of just free ranges and eats the shrubs around. But he's giving Malta hay because he thinks Malta deserves a little bit more than just the grass. And he talks about sort of how it's a little odd to see the finery of of Fool's belongings hung up in his little stable.
Yeah.
And then he walks into the cabin and is sort of shocked at how it feels so different, and says that it feels like he's back in the Mountain Kingdom in Fool's hut there.
Yeah. Then, as now, he created reality around himself, bringing order and peace to a small island of warm firelight and the simple smell of hearth bread cooking. So they look at each other for a little bit, and Fitz says, in the space of a sundown, you show me the wide world from a horse's back and the soul of the world within my own walls. Oh, my friend, he said quietly. No more than that needed to be said. We are whole from Nighteyes. And the fool cocked his head at that. So again, he's kind of, it seems to Fitz that he's trying to recall something.
Yes.
It's like a little bit of like there's some sort of thing passing between you. And that's what the fool says. Like I can almost hear when you're speaking.
Yeah, it sounds like flies buzzing.
Yep.
But no, I think once again, we have this moment of, you've brought the whole wide world to me and into my home with your presence. And it's like, yeah, just two bros that are good friends, nothing more, no love there. Definitely not any sort of relationship other than friendship.
So the fool has been cooking the entire time. Nighteyes is laying before the fire drying off, and there's fresh fish in the pot, and Fitz is like, fresh fish. And the fool's like, yeah, I guess the wolf remembered my my appreciation for fresh fish.
Yes.
And Nighteyes just kind of gives a look to Fitz, lolling his tongue.
Yes. And I think really notably here we have Fitz helping a little bit with dinner when the fool tells him to grind the coffee beans that he has made Fitz bring in. But other than that, the fool has taken over the kitchen. He is making dinner. He has taken things from the garden. He got fish from Nighteyes. He is, taking over. He's making dinner. And I found that detail really interesting because up until this point, it's always been Fitz who has charge in the kitchen. When Jenna came,
it was a combination between the two.
There was more split.
Yeah,
but he noted that was the first time he had cooked with a woman since living with the Witted Ones. Starling has Fitz do everything. Fitz makes her breakfast every time. He makes breakfast for Hap. I just found it a cute little detail here that the role that Fitz is usually playing of taking care of others isn't need to be done here. Fool is taking care of him.
So he grinds the coffee beans, and eventually, according to Fitz, magically, all the food is ready at once because that's something that he can't really ever accomplish.
Which, same. I've never once been able to make a dinner and have all components be ready at the same time. But this chapter has a lot of food descriptions in it of what they're eating and stuff. And it just makes me think of, there's an Instagram account. It's like Buckkeep Recipes, I think.
I think so, something like that.
From Buckkeep. It's one of the, we'll look it up. But that Instagram always posts different pictures of meals that are recreated from the book. And it always makes me so hungry. So I just love seeing those posts. And then this chapter, I'm like, oh, I need to check that account again.
Recipes from Buck.
Recipes from Buck.
Yes.
Love seeing all the rustic looking food in a good way. Rustic.
Yes, home-cooked meals that are usually described from the books.
Yeah, it's really cool. So this chapter specifically made me be like, I need to check that account again, see if they've done any of these meals because they sound good. I want to see what they look like.
The fool also set out a slab of tender fish for the wolf, who dutifully ate it, though he would have preferred it raw and cold. So that was also a parallel to the Jenna chapter to me, because Jenna made him a loaf of bread that he just ate it out of sociability and being social rather than hunger.
Yes, which
so
again
is the same kind of thing here.
Yeah, but again, we have a proof of how intertwined Fitz and Nighteyes are, because that's such a human thing to do, to care about the feelings of the person who made something for you and to sociably eat it, even just a few bites because it's polite.
Right.
Whereas you would think an animal would sniff and not eat it if it didn't want to. So it's kind of funny to see that little hint of humanity in Nighteyes every once in a while.
We also get a description of Fitz's first experience with coffee here. The hot brown liquid smelled better than it tasted, true, but sharpened the mind pleasantly. It's funny, both Emma and I are not coffee drinkers, but we both enjoy the smell.
We do. So agree with Fitz's take there.
They walk outside with their warm mugs in the cool night and go down to the stream, and Fitz gives a little tour of his cabin, shows the beads and the Jenna's charm out in the garden and the whole story there. And we visited his horse, Fitz says, and I shut the door in the chicken house to keep the poultry safe for the night. And then they wander back to the cabin and sit down on the edge of the porch. Without a word, the fool took my empty cup back into the house, and he returned with sandsedge brandy brimmed to the cup. He sat down beside me on one side, and the wolf claimed a place on the other side and set his head on my knee. I took a sip of the brandy, silked the wolf's ears through my fingers, and waited. The fool gave a small sigh. I stayed away from you as long as I could. He offered the words like an apology. I lifted an eyebrow at that. Any time that you returned to visit me would have not been too soon. I often wondered what had become of you. Fool nods gravely. I stayed away, hoping that you would finally find a measure of peace and contentment. I did, I assured him. I have. And now I have returned to take it away from you. He did not look at me as he said those words. He stared off into the night at the darkness beneath the crowding trees. He swung his legs like a child and then took a sip of his brandy. My heart gave a little lurch. I had thought he had come to see me for my own sake. Carefully, I asked, Chade sent you, then, to ask me to come to Buckkeep? I gave him my answer. Did you? Ah. He paused a moment, swirling the brandy in his cup as he pondered. I should have known that he would have been here already. No, my friend, I have not seen Chade all these years. But that he has sought you out but proves what I dreaded. A time is upon us when the White Prophet must once more employ his catalyst. Believe me, if there were any other way, if I could leave you in peace, I would. Truly, I would.
So I just want to pause here because I have a few thoughts. My
Yes.
first thought being, it's really striking the parallels between Fitz and the Fool in the way that they keep away from their loved ones. In that Fitz and Molly and Burek and really everybody from Buckkeep, he sort of purposely distanced himself from because he doesn't want to ruin their life with his presence, right? I mean, that's a generalization, but essentially he feels as though if he is in their life, it will
be a
somehow,
complication.
yes, and that he doesn't deserve to like have them figure out how to work out how to fit him in their life. So then we have the Fool, who also has kept away from Fitz for that amount of time because he too feels as though coming back into Fitz's life is too much of a complication. And I say that because clearly Fitz would have loved to hear from the Fool, even if it wasn't coming in person. If the Fool had been writing to him or trying to keep in contact, that would have been something Fitz would have loved. And if he would have come to visit, he would have loved that. And yet Fool stayed away because he felt as though his presence is too much of a complication in Fitz's life. He could
take some of the peace that Fitz might find and might through the catalyst, and the White Prophet might direct Fool or Fitz into some danger, maybe.
Yeah.
So he stayed away for his own good.
Yes. And I find that parallel so interesting here because it really is punishing themselves and the ones that they love and thinking that it's this sort of martyr thing to do of like, I'm only punishing myself without being able to acknowledge that they're also punishing their loved ones.
Right.
Inadvertently. And here we have Fitz, who is so taken aback by this sort of attitude of, oh, well, I stayed away as long as I could and I didn't want to come see you, but now I need to change your life again. And sort of like, why couldn't he just see me? Because he wanted to see me. And that's probably how everybody who loves Fitz feels. Why can't Fitz just come talk to them? It doesn't have to be something more than that. It could just be in secret if he wanted to, but I don't know. I find it so interesting that Fitz can't make that connection of like, oh, maybe this is what I was doing to my friends and loved ones too. But yeah, so we have that sort of theme. And then there's another thing I wanted to bring up, but I lost it.
Did I keep reading past what you wanted to say? Quite possibly. I do that quite often.
Couldn't have been too important if I forgot, I suppose.
Well, the Fool thinks it's time for the White Prophet to employ his catalyst.
Yes, that is... Thank you. That actually just reminded me. The other thing I wanted to say was that I think this sort of lends itself to my theory that the world is sort of waking up to needing capital C catalyst Fitz again.
Right.
And that things are happening because he is needed to turn the world. So the world's trying to get him into the space to be able to direct change because we have Fool coming in saying, oh, obviously Chade being here is proof that something is happening in the world. Like you are needed again as a catalyst and things are happening even if I'm not here to try to push you into that role again. And so I kind of feel like that's pretty good confirmation, but we also know that Fool isn't always correct and doesn't fully know everything. So it could just be his own way to assuage his guilt to be like, see, I have to be here to bring you in because even if I'm not, you're going to be roped in.
Yeah, I don't fully ascribe to the world has agency or the fate has agency and wants the catalyst to do this because I think that could also just be the decisions that Fitz would be pivotal in because he is supposed to be dead, are finally to the present timeline. Those choices are finally starting to be around.
Okay.
So now it's kind of like circling on him again. He was a solitary river for a while, but now more branches are starting to come into his river, and he's starting to split a little bit more. So
Okay.
that's kind of my view. So Fitz asks him, what do you need me to do? And he's a little disgruntled because the fool is ever the fool and not straightforward at all. So the fool answers, I need what I have always needed from you ever since I discovered that you existed. If I am to change time in its course, if I am to set the world on a truer path than it has ever followed before, then I must have you. Your life is the wedge I use to make the future jump from its rut. He looked at my disgruntled face and laughed aloud at me. I try, Fitz, indeed I do. I speak as plainly as I can, but your ears will not believe what they hear. I first came to the Six Duchies and to Shrews Court all those years ago to seek a way to fend off a disaster. I came not knowing how I would do it, only that I must. And what did I discover? You. A bastard, but none the less an heir to the Farseer line. In no future that I had glimpsed had I seen you. Yet when I recalled all I knew of the prophecies of my kind, I discovered you again and again. In sideways mentions and sly hints, there you were. And so I did all that I could to keep you alive, which mostly was bestirring you to keep yourself alive. I groped through the mists with no more than a snail's glinting trail of prescience to guide me. I acted based on what I knew I must prevent, rather than what I must cause. We cheated all those other futures. I urged you into danger and I dragged you back from death, heedless of what it cost you in pain and scars and dreams denied. Yet you survived, and when all the cataclysms of the cleansing of Buck were done, there was a true-born heir to the Farseer line because of you. And suddenly it was as if I were lifted onto a peak above a valley brimmed with fog. I do not say that my eyes can pierce the fog, only that I stand above it and see, in the vast distance, the peaks of a new and possible future, a future founded on you. So Fitz sits there looking at him, and he feels the twinge of his old arrow wound and his scars and his aches, and he's like, oh boy.
Yeah, here we go again. No, I find it really interesting here that Fool has specifically said that when he last used Fitz as the catalyst, he used him based on what I knew I must prevent rather than what I must cause.
Yeah, he was very reactive.
Yeah, and I find that really interesting because it seems as though that's what he tried to avoid doing as Amber, right? He tried to get there before the reactiveness was needed, and once again did not do that. And so I almost wonder if that's what makes it better, if that's the right way to be, is to sort of not really focus on the cause, but preventing the bad,
In this trilogy, though, he really takes a step forward and starts doing things on his own, right?
Yeah.
Like in maybe the second book of this trilogy, he flies off on his own to meet them at the island because Fitz finds out that he's planning on dying, so he gets him to stay behind. So I think there are steps that the fool learns, like some things I need to do. Like it needs to be done. I need to cause some things.
Yeah. And I guess maybe that's learned because technically Fitz wasn't as successful as he could have been, I guess, in the first trilogy to the end cause of bringing back dragons. I mean, he does create the air, which means that the ice fire can come about. So that is towards the goal. Mm-hmm. However, I don't think anything that is done in that trilogy other than that brings the world towards having dragons.
I mean, it's also foiling the Pale Woman's and therefore Claris's plans.
True.
Which is huge.
Yes.
Continuing that Farseer line because it would have ended with Regal.
True.
Is a very big thing.
Yeah, you're right. So I guess there's a little bit, but I mean, in general, I think for the Fool's goal of bringing back dragons, it sort of makes sense that it's not done and that maybe there could have been more done.
Right.
If he hadn't have been so reactive.
Well, the fool says, well, and Fitz confesses that he probably needs more brandy, so they all get up and go back inside. And the fool grabs out a bottle from his own saddles.
Yes.
And Fitz notices that it's a quarter empty, so he realizes that the fool did fortify himself for this conversation and meeting.
Yes. Before we get to that and the brandy, I just want to point out that when Fool gets done talking about this whole, oh, you must be my catalyst again, and then Fitz sits there and feels the twinge in his arrow scar and his back, the Fool, when he says well, is looking at him hungrily. He's wanting a reaction from that speech. He wants to see Fitz acknowledge some sort of feeling of knowing that he's right, I think.
Yeah.
There's sort of this like feeling of reassure me, tell me that you feel it too. Tell me you feel the cosmos bringing us together.
I can't be alone in this, you are part of this whole thing.
And I think what's really interesting about Fitz is he continuously sort of downplays that connection or that feeling or any sort of feeling he gets that pushes him towards Fool's future. Like, he did feel something from that. I know it's a twitch in the back, but
a throb like a dull red foreboding followed it.
Yes.
I told myself that I had sat too long in one position. That was all.
Yes. So like, I mean, sure, it could just be he's old and achy and sitting in one position too long, but I feel like that kind of was a reaction, and maybe that would mean something to Fool, but Fitz would never admit that. And I think later there's something said, and he waits for Fitz to say, like, yeah, I experienced that too. And Fitz says, no, I didn't feel that way. And it sort of is interesting to me because Fitz has been feeling like something is coming. Even in this chapter, he felt like he's waiting for something and he doesn't know what. And then here Fool comes saying, your destiny awaits. You have something to do. You're the catalyst again. And he sort of is like, no, I don't think so. Nothing's really making me feel that way, except for the fact that I've just been restless and want to change my whole life. And suddenly nothing makes me peaceful anymore. But
he isn't denying it though.
No, but I think to the Fool, he sort of downplays it and acts like those things are not sort of connected in any way. So I don't know. It feels more like he doesn't understand they're connected maybe. And so whenever Fool tries to be like, don't you see there is something big happening, Fitz cannot make that connection on his own.
Right. Well, as I mentioned, they get up and go inside, and because the sand sedge brandy is now out, the Fool grabs his own brandy from his saddle packs, and Fitz realizes that, yeah, he did fortify himself against this meeting. He kind of wondering what he dreaded, but he tucks that observation away. With a heavy sigh, the wolf stretched out between us, his head in my lap. I rubbed his head and caught a sudden twinge of pain from him. I moved my hand down him to his hip joints and massaged them gently. Nighteyes gave a low groan as the touch eased him. How bad is it? Mind your own business. You are my business. Sharing pain doesn't lessen it. I'm not sure about that. He's getting old, the Fool interrupted our chained thoughts. So am I pointed out. You, however, look as young as ever. Yet I'm substantially older than both of you put together, and tonight I feel every one of my years. As if to give the lie to his own words, he lightly drew up his knees to tighten to his chest and rested his chin atop them as he hugged his own legs.
So he's like 50-something?
Yeah, so Fitz is 35. Nighteyes is about 17-ish, because I think Fitz got him when he was 17.
Yeah.
So ish, maybe 18 years old is Nighteyes. So the Fool at the lowest is 52. At the lowest, but he says substantially older than both of them combined. So
he'll be 60.
60, maybe 70.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know how the lights work. But
Krilkop has been alive for hundreds of years.
True. But also crazy to think that he's maybe 70, pushing 70, and has 0 wrinkles.
Right. Yeah. If we're saying he's at the lowest he could possibly be, 52, That means he's 17 years older than Fitz.
Maybe I'm misremembering, but I swear at one point he makes some comment about being in his 20s when Fitz is like 12 or like in his early teens. Or maybe we thought maybe he was in his 20s.
I think we speculated on his age.
I just have like a distinct memory of that sort of conversation happening.
I think he mentioned something about we're like in the same period of adolescence kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, so they grew, like whites grow up slower, as we know from B as well. So I think it was that kind of message, and we were trying to speculate his age based on this conversation, but we forgot the word substantially.
Yes.
And we thought he was like 52 to 55.
Okay.
In this section. So he would have been like 20s when Fitz was 14 or something.
Weird.
So at the minimum, he's 17 years older than Fitz. At the minimum.
Interesting. Well, anyway, we don't know. We just know that he is old, and Fitz does not believe him.
Right.
Which goes back to him saying, I can't be clear with you because you won't believe me anyway.
So Fitz then remarks to Nighteyes in their wits ending that if you drank some willow bark tea, it might ease you. Spare me your swill and keep rubbing. A small smile bowed the fool's mouth. I can almost hear you two. It's like a gnat humming near my ear, or the itch of something forgotten, or trying to recall the sweet taste of something from a passing whiff of its fragrance. Makes me feel lonely. I'm sorry, I said, not knowing what else I could say. That Nighteyes and I spoke as we did was not an effort to exclude him from our circle. It was that our circle made us one in a fundamental way we could not share. Yet once we did, Nighteyes reminded me, once we did, and it was good. Do not think that I glanced at the fool's gloved hand. Perhaps he was closer to us than he realized, for he lifted his hand and tugged the finely woven glove from it. His long-fingered, elegant hand emerged. Once, a chance touch of his had brushed his fingers against Verity's skill-impregnated hands. That touch had silvered his fingers and given him a tactile skill that let him know the history of things simply by touching them. I turned my own wrist to look down at it. So Fitz sees that the fingerprints are still kind of there where he touched him, and he remembers that for a time that their minds had been joined almost as if he, Nighteyes, and the fool had been a skill coterie and one mind. But the silver on his fingers had faded, as had the fingerprints on my wrist and a link that had bonded us.
So in this moment, the fool offers to touch those spots again to sort of reconnect the circle and be one, and Fitz won't do it.
He's closing his eyes to steady himself against that temptation. It would not be wise, I said thickly. And a fool is supposed to be wise? You have always been the wisest creature I've known. I opened my eyes to his earnest gaze. I want it as I want breath itself, fool. Take it away, please. If you're sure... No, that was a cruel question. Look, it is gone. And he puts back on his gloves.
Just the one glove, because only one hand is silvered.
Thank you, Fitz says. So yeah, I think this is because of the skill temptation that Fitz is really trying to deny himself any sort of connection to that. He doesn't want to awaken that hunger anymore. He is scared of that, and yet wants it, like he says, like breath itself.
Right. And I think I don't know, it's hard because I kind of feel like maybe this wouldn't make him be skill hungry, but also maybe it would. It's really hard. Like,
it's fulfilling his deepest desire when he's skilling.
Yeah.
It's that sense of connection, that oneness, that wholeness of mind.
So you'd think it would be a relief after all this time of not getting it, but I guess then it just makes it more fresh how wonderful it is. And then, so, okay.
He quits drinking and he's hungering after that one taste of burning alcohol.
Okay.
You know, a little sip would help.
Little sip couldn't hurt. No, okay, touche. It is not that simple. I just want them to be connected and whole as one, but I'm not thinking about it in the right way. I get it.
Yeah, in this state of mind, Fitz, I think, is correct. And just like, I'm not trying to worry my wolf. I'm not trying to harm myself physically from straining my mental that much. Like,
growth.
I have been cold turkey for a while. Let's not
reopen.
tempt me, please. Yeah. So to take his mind off it, he takes a sip of the brandy, the apricot brandy that the fool has poured.
That we want so bad.
It tasted a summer orchard and bees bumbling in the hot sunshine among the ripe and fallen fruit. Honey and apricots danced along the edges of my tongue. It was decadently good. I've never tasted anything like this, I observed, glad to change the subject. And the fool's like, yeah, I've spoiled myself now that I can afford the best. There's a good stock of it in Bingtown, awaiting a message from me to tell them where to ship it. And then Fitz is like, oh, wait, you're rich?
You're rich? And like a good billionaire that he is, the fool says, that word doesn't touch the reality. Pink suffuses amber cheeks. And,
he looks a little bit embarrassed to admit that.
Yeah, but Fitz is happy for him. He wants to know. He says, tell. He wants to know how that happened. And instead of telling the whole 3-book saga that we went through to get there, he says, it's too long of a tale. Let me condense it for you. Friends insisted on sharing with me a windfall of wealth. I doubt that even they knew the full value of all they pressed upon me. I have a friend in a trading town far to the south, and as she sells it off for the best prices such rare goods can command, she sends me letters of credit to Bingtown. He shook his head as ruefully, appalled at his good fortune. No matter how well I spend it, there always seems to be more. And Fitz replies with, I am glad for you. And he means it, which is so funny. I don't know. It's so funny for the fool to be like, well, I can't really get into it, but basically I've just helped the right people and I'm a billionaire now. I can never seem to spend enough. To poor Fitz, who's over here fretting about how he's going to afford his boys' apprenticeship fees.
He's really like, wow, this is a good wheel of cheese.
Yeah.
I never see that.
I never get soft cheese.
It's really interesting. But yes, the brandy. We really want that. We want to find good brandy that tastes of summer orchards and bees bumbling around.
Apricot and honey.
Mm-hmm. But Fitz is glad for the fool, and the fool's like, yeah, I knew you would be. Despite all of this wealth, nothing's really changed, and that feels great.
Whether I sleep on spun gold or straw, my destiny remains the same, as does yours. We were back on that again. I summoned all my strength and resolve. No, fool, I said firmly, I won't be pulled back into buckkeep politics. I have a life of my own now, and it is here.
Fitz, you've always had a life of your own. That is precisely your problem. You've always had a destiny. As for it being here, he shied a look around the room. Here is no more than where you happen to be standing at the moment, or sitting. I haven't come to drag you back into anything, Fitz. Time has brought me here. It's carried you here as well, just as it brought Shade, and other twists to your fortunes of late. Am I wrong? He was not. Fitz thinks back, and he's like, well, the entire summer has been one kink into my normal routine.
True. And he doesn't answer, but he knows he doesn't need to because Fool already knows.
And then Fitz changes the subject, and this is what we talked about in the previous trilogy.
Yes.
So Fitz says, I dreamed of you once. And despite trying to play it off, I don't know, kind of casually, Fitz is like, no, this was different.
Yes, because Fool says, I think we had this conversation before, a long time ago. No, this is different. I didn't know it was you until just now. Or maybe I did. It had been a restless night years ago, and when I awakened, the dream had clung to my mind like pitch on my hands. I had known it was significant, and yet the snatch of what I had seen had made so little sense, I could not grasp its significance. I didn't know you had gone golden, you see, but now, when you leaned back with your eyes closed, you, or someone, were lying on a rough wooden floor. Your eyes were closed. You were sick or injured. A man leaned over you. I felt he wanted to hurt you, so I had repelled at him, using the wit in a way I had not for years. A rough thrust of animal presence to shove him away, to express dominance of him in a way he could not understand yet hated. The hatred was proportionate to his fear. The fool was silent, waiting for me. I pushed him away from you. He was angry, hating you, wanting to hurt you, but I pressed on his mind that he had to go and fetch help for you. He had to tell someone that you needed help. He resented what I did to him, but he had to obey me. Because you skill burned it into him, the fool said quietly. Perhaps, I admitted unwillingly. Certainly the next day had been one long torment of headaches and the skill hunger. The thought made me uneasy. I had been telling myself that I could not skill that way. Certain other dreams stirred uneasily in my memory. I pushed them down again. No, I promised myself, they were not the same.
So yeah, that's one little hint that Fitz has been skill dreaming and using the skill in his dreams sometimes.
Yes. And also that he has been connected to Fool the whole time. He just didn't know it.
Or at least that one time.
Yes, at least once.
But that was when Amber insisted that she was not hurt by Lavoy, but Lavoy went to get help from Althea and Brashen, saying that she had fell.
Yes.
And then that Amber had been bruised. So we still don't know for sure if Lavoy did anything. Amber insists that it was not Lavoy that did anything, that she was just kind of sick and fell down and got bruised.
Yeah, but Lavoy did want to.
Lavoy
and this
wanted
is
to.
Proof.
Yeah.
And I guess before we move on with that thought, what do you think are these other dreams that Fitz is pushing away?
I think it's people that he's connected to, like skill dreaming with and sharing with Dutiful and Nettle, and possibly just skill walking, like Verity had done before and he had done before during the Red Ship War, kind of going into people of the Six Duchies when they're in danger and maybe helping them out in certain cases.
Why would he push those away, though?
Because he doesn't want to think that he can skill, like that he has been connected to people. I think that's why, because he says that I did not think I could have skilled like that, putting a skill command in someone's head.
See, that's why I thought maybe this was reminding him of what he did to Regal.
Maybe, yeah.
And so he's pushing it away of, I'm not really capable of that because it was an accident. I did it through somebody else, and I don't know.
That could be, yeah. But I think he kind of meant to do it to Regal, though.
Well, for sure he meant to do it to Regal, but maybe he doesn't like thinking of himself as someone capable of doing what Galen did to him or
That's
his
fair.
whatever.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. But we do have the Fool who is shocked and, you know, is sort of like, well, that makes sense. That actually puts everything into place.
I thought something like that might have happened. It never made sense to me that he didn't get rid of me when he could have. Sometimes when I was most alone, I mocked myself that I could cling to such a hope, that I could believe I was so important to anyone that he would travel in his dreams to protect me. You should have known better than that, I said quietly. Should I? The question was almost a challenge. He gave me the most direct look I had ever received from him. I did not understand the hurt I saw in his eyes, nor the hope. He needed something from me, but I wasn't sure what it was. I tried to find something to say, but before I could, the moment seemed to pass. He looked away from me, releasing me from his plea. When his eyes came back to mine, he changed both his expression and the subject.
What do you think he's waiting for there?
I think what the Fool hopes for all of his life from Fitz. Love without boundaries, without reservations, that you are in my mind all the time as well. That kind of admittance, you know?
Yeah. Which is really interesting to me. And maybe it's the bias of being in Fitz's head, but I do feel like Fitz gives him that reassurance without saying it. And I guess Fitz also would agree with me that he's giving that reassurance, but I understand that also that they kind of speak in different ways.
They do, yeah.
And that's the crux of their problem, is that they can't quite speak the same language in a way, that they can't get each other to understand that depth of care. I mean, they do in a lot of ways. I think both of them know how loved they are with each other, but I don't think they fully know the depth.
Right. So the fool changes the subject to tell me the story of the last 15 years.
Yes. What happened when I flew away?
I thought, but you said you had not seen Chade for years. How did you know how to find me then? By way of answer, he closed his eyes and then brought his left and right forefingers together to meet before him. He opened his eyes and smiled at me. I knew it was as much answer as I would get. So he dreamed of it, obviously, like, Fitz, this is where I can find him.
I thought that was more of like a sort of like,
We're connected?
yeah, we're connected. Like, I'm drawn to you. So we're drawn to each other sort of vibe. But I guess he could have dreamed of it.
It kind of in the same way, you
Yeah.
know? It's just like his
Who knows?
connection
He's
with
very
Fitz.
vague.
Yeah. I scarcely know where to begin. I do, with more brandy. I set a hand on Nighteyes' head and felt him hovering between sleep and wakefulness. If his hips still troubled him, he was concealing it well. He was getting better and better at holding himself apart from me. I wonder why he concealed his pain. Do you wish to share your aching back with me? Leave me alone and stop borrowing trouble. Not every problem in the world belongs to you. He lifted his head from my knee and with a deep sigh stretched out more fully before the hearth. Like a curtain falling between us, he masked himself once more. And knowing what's coming, it's like so incredibly sad because Nighteyes is distancing himself emotionally from like hurts from Fitz because he knows the end is coming.
Yeah, it's really sad. I think it also goes to that sort of animal nature to isolate when you know it's your time. Like animals do that. Even pets do that where they, if they know they're dying, sort of like hide away from their owners sometimes. And it just is so sad. I hate thinking about it. Like I'm not trying to borrow trouble. I want to live in this peace right now with Nighteyes. And it's really hard because he keeps, I don't know, pulling away from Fitz and sort of readying Fitz to not have him all the time.
But at the same time, Fitz rises slowly, one hand to his aching back, and he's like, well, Nighteyes is kind of right.
Yeah.
It's not, maybe we shouldn't share our pains all the time.
Yeah.
So they sit down at the table then, instead of in front of the hearth.
Well, he sits down at the table and then the fool sort of starts exploring.
Yeah. Fitz describes him like a cat exploring a new space. Just trying to like testing each room, looking into everything, and then all of a sudden, oh, this is the extra study with all these scrolls, and he walks in boldly.
Yes.
Fitz explains that he's been trying to write the history like Fedrin and Patience had hinted at when he was a young boy. And Fool asks permission, like, may I? Fitz said, like, yeah, of course, you can go through some stuff. And he unrolls the scroll game, or the stone game scroll. And he's like, oh, yeah, I remember this. And Fitz is explaining that he's going to send it on to Chade when he's done. I've sent him things from time to time via Starling, but up until a month or so ago, I hadn't seen him since we parted in the mountains. Ah, but you had seen Starling. His back was to me. I wondered what expression he wore. The fool and the minstrel had never gotten along well together. For a time they had made an uneasy truce, but I had always been the bone of contention between them. The fool had never approved of my friendship with Starling, never believed she had my best interests at heart. It didn't make it any easier to let him know he had always been right. So Fitz explains the history of Starling briefly, and that eventually he found out that she was married and that he had to end things. But before he explains all of that, he talks about Starling in the beginning, like, oh, I've seen her off and on for 7 to 8 years, and well, she brought my boy Hap, and then he goes into a whole long thing about Hap.
Right.
And the fool has to remind him, like, oh, you were talking about Starling. And then Fitz is like, okay, fine, explains the rest of it, and how eventually he found out that she was married. And it made her angry, obviously, when he ended things. She couldn't understand why it couldn't continue as long as her husband never found out. That's Starling. His voice was oddly non-judgmental, as if he commiserated with me over a garden blight. He turned in the chair to look at me over his shoulder. And you're all right? I cleared my throat. I've kept busy and not thought much about it. Because she felt no shame at all, you think it all must belong to you. People like her are so adept at passing on blame. This is a lovely red ink on this. Where did you get it? I made it. Did you? And so he changes the subject there. Which eventually goes to, I kept Burik's earring and never passed it on to Molly. And Fitz is like, well, probably good you did. It's better off that they don't think I'm alive. And then the fool's like, another question answered.
Yes. And I just want to point out that whenever Fool hugged Fitz when they first met, Fitz did mention the feel of Burik's earring pressing into his neck when Fool hugged him.
Yeah.
So he did already know that Fool still had the earring, but
Yes.
Fool's talking about it now. And so as he says, I'm glad, you didn't. It's fine. And then Fool says, so are you going to tell me all the events in order, or must I try to pry bits out of you one at a time? I sighed. I dreaded recalling those times. Jade had been willing to accept an account of events that related to the Farseer reign. The Fool would want more than that. Even as I cringed from it, I could not evade the notion that somehow I owed him that telling. I'll try, but I'm tired and we've had too much brandy and it's far too much to tell in one evening. Were you expecting me to leave tomorrow? I thought you might. I watched his face as I added, I didn't hope it. He accepted me at my word. That's good then, for you would have hoped in vain. To bed with you, Fitz. I'll take the boy's cot. Tomorrow is soon enough to begin to fill in nearly 15 years of absence.
So they totter off to bed. At least Fitz totters off to bed. He's like, maybe the apricot brandy was more potent than Sandsedge, but it described the fool filling up their cups to the brim, so I think he had a lot more.
Yeah, I think they're just drinking a lot.
Yeah.
That's like me after a night of drinking of like, wow, somebody put something in my 7 margaritas. Yeah. I don't know why I have such a headache.
So Fitz kind of collapses in his bed and he's watching the fool put the rest of the cabin to rights, extinguishing candles and pulling in the latch string. Perhaps only I could have seen the slight unsteadiness in his movements. Then he sat down in my chair and stretched his legs toward the fire. At his feet, the wolf groaned and shifted in his sleep. I touched Mines gently with Nighteyes. He was deeply asleep in welling contentment. I closed my eyes, but the room spun sickeningly. I opened them a crack and stared at the fool. He sat very still as he stared into the fire, but the dancing lights of the flames lent their motion to his features. Now he's staring at the fool, and he realizes that he's no longer the impish gesture who had both served and protected King Shrewd for all those years. His body had not changed, save in coloring, and yet he wasn't the same person. Fitz can't think of him wearing the same kind of motley with bells and carrying a rat scepter anymore.
Yeah. Even though this current outfit sort of reminds him of that motley with the black and white, it's just still so different.
His lively wit and sharp tongue no longer influenced the course of political events. His life was his own now. I tried to imagine him as a wealthy man, able to travel and live as he pleased. A sudden thought jolted me from my complacency. Fool? What? He did not open his eyes, but his ready reply showed he had not yet slipped towards sleep. You are not the fool anymore. What do they call you these days? A slow smile curved his lips in profile. What does who call me when? He spoke in the baiting tone of the gesture he had been. If I tried to sort out that question, he would tumble me in verbal acrobatics until I gave up hoping for an answer. I refused to be drawn into his game. I rephrased my question. I should not call you fool anymore. What do you want me to call you? Ah, what do I want you to call me now? I see, an entirely different question. Mockery made music in his voice. I drew a breath and made my question as plain as possible. What is your name, your real name? Ah. His manner was suddenly grave. He took a slow breath. My name. As in, what my mother called me at my birth? Yes. And then I held my breath. He spoke seldom of his childhood. I suddenly realized the immensity of what I had asked him. It was the old naming magic. If I know how you are truly named, I have power over you. If I tell you my name, I grant you that power. Like all direct questions I had ever asked the fool, I both dreaded and longed for the answer. And if I tell you, you would call me by that name? His inflection told me to weigh my answer. That gave me pause. His name was his, and not for me to bandy about. But, in private only, and only if you wished me to, I offered solemnly. I considered the words as binding as a vow. Ah, he turned to face me, his face lit with delight. Oh, but I would, he assured me. Then, I asked again. I was suddenly uneasy. The name my mother gave me I give now to you, to call me by in private. He took a breath, closed his eyes, and his grin grew even wider. Beloved. She called me only beloved. Fool, I protested. And he laughs and says, she did. Fool, I am serious. The room had begun to revolve slowly around me. If I did not go to sleep soon, I would be sick. And you think I am not? He gave a theatrical sigh. Well, if you cannot call me beloved, then I suppose you should continue to call me fool, for I am ever the fool to your Fitz.
So dramatic. But name drop.
Name drop, yeah, we get beloved.
We finally know.
Yes.
Beloved is the true name.
And now we get a little bit of trickery by the fool here, because we find out later on that where he comes from, lovers will exchange their names and call each other by their own names. So I would call you Luke, and you would call me Emma.
Yes. Which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
Also, that makes sense with that sort of a culture to then have names like beloved.
Yeah.
Or
right.
something like lovey to call somebody, because if you're calling it to someone else, you'd want it to be full of love.
Yeah. Exactly.
I don't know. It's actually really sweet, and I love this. But again, yes, you're right. It is sort of a trick in a way, but I think really just the fool's true intentions coming through.
Fitz is well and truly drunk, about to be sick if he doesn't go to sleep, and still scared that he asked the fool a direct question of like, oh no, he's super private. I shouldn't have done this.
I shouldn't
But
have
also,
tried.
I really want to know the answer.
Yes, because it is. I mean, he cares about him and he wants to know. And so Beloved says, well, if you cannot call me beloved, then I suppose you should continue to call me fool, for I am ever the fool to your Fitz. Tom Badgerlock. What? I am Tom Badgerlock now. That is how I am known. He was silent for a time then. Not by me, he replied decisively. If you insist we must both take different names now, then I shall call you beloved. And whenever I call you that, you may call me fool. He opened his eyes and rolled his head to look at me. He simpered a lovesick smile, then heaved an exaggerated sigh. Good night, good night, beloved. We have been apart far too long. Good night, fool. I rolled over in my bed and closed my eyes. If he made any response, I was asleep before he uttered it.
So there's two things in there. One, he exchanges the names without Fitz knowing the custom, right? He calls Fitz beloved. And he says, if you if you insist, I'll call you beloved, and you can call me fool. So that means Fitz's real name is Fool.
Yes. Honestly, true.
Yeah, name drop.
Name drop. I love it so much. I think it's so cute and just like a funny little scene. And there's so much there. I don't know. I think it also speaks to sort of the depth of their relationship that Fool is giving away such an intimate detail, right?
It is, yeah. And also, I really think that you can see, rereading this especially, the depth of Beloved's feelings for Fitz, because he takes on a character here, right?
Yeah.
When Fitz first asks him, you know, what do they call you these days? What's your true name? He defaults to his like, oh, I have to be the fool. That's what Fitz likes, you know?
Yeah.
That's the character that he knows and plays to. And the fool does that, or Beloved does that defensively later on in this series as well.
Yes.
He like reverts to the fool once in a while when Fitz gets tired of like the Lord Golden thing.
Yeah.
Like he becomes the fool for a little bit, and then Fitz is kind of mad, like, hey, you just can't do that. Who are you actually? So I think he uses it defensively to try to keep Fitz like, oh, he has to like me, you know? He has to be my friend. And
Yeah.
then when he fully on reveals my name is beloved and Fitz takes it fine because obviously they're friends, you know,
Yes.
then beloved has to over amplify. Oh, I'm playing the lovesick character. I'm giving the exaggerated, like, oh, my beloved, because he's
Yes.
uncomfortable with it still.
Yeah.
At
Yeah.
least that's how I read it. How I read that. It's like it's such an intimate part of who he is. And he wants Fitz to call him by his name in private. He just has to play it over exaggerated, you know? He
Yeah.
can't just honestly do that because that's the character of Beloved. He's so private, he's so hurt by other things that revealing this is such a delicate thing for him.
I really like that reading. I think that's a really good thing to look for. And I think especially calling to how frustrated Fitz gets later with how easy it is for Beloved to switch between Fool and Lord Golden and even Amber.
Right.
It sort of just really confuses Fitz because how can he contain so much multitudes? Like, how is there so much in this one person? And what's true? Is it all fake? Does he even know who
Yeah.
Fool is? I think it's such an interesting part of their relationship here. And I think especially talking about that and thinking like what is real with Beloved, what is truly beloved, and what is that mask that's there to shield him from hurt is a really interesting thing to be thinking on and to be looking for.
Yeah. And I do want to remark on that in this episode because I know when we get to those arguments, I'm going to be frustrated and probably not think of it at that point.
Yeah.
But Fitz is kind of right. The Fool, Beloved, never truly, even though he insists he does, he never truly gives him all of who he is because he can present those different sides of him. There are very intimate moments between them two of them where they share these details with one another, where they, you know, are in pain and like share their lives together. But having all of those different sides of him being able to come out immediately and it's not present unless he's inhabiting those characters would be disconcerting.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand that Fitz is very obtuse in those arguments later on. But I do see where Fitz kind of feels cheated because he has been incredibly open with Beloved. He in this chapter even, he feels he owes it to Beloved to tell him his whole 15 years history that he wouldn't give to Chade even.
Right.
And that it's going to be really hard for him to do so, but he kind of needs to do it because the Fool deserves it.
Yeah.
And then later on, the Fool has all of these parts of his life hidden from Fitz. Like, you were different characters and you never showed me any of this side of you. Who are you actually?
Yeah.
You know, have you been hiding everything from me?
Yeah, which does come back in the final trilogy with Fitz, where they're going after B and traveling together, and, you know, Fool or Beloved, I guess, is sort of going to Amber again because they have to be to ride with the Rainwilders up the river
in
and
Kelsingra, you know, or like later on. Yeah.
Yes. And so I think it's really interesting that this is like a reoccurring problem that they never truly get through until the end. But I do think it's a little unfair to say that Beloved never gives himself to Fitz fully, I think.
Right. I made a couple caveats
Well, yeah,
there.
yeah. I think there are bits of Beloved there, right? I think.
Yeah. And they're definitely all aspects of the same person, right?
Yes,
like that's kind of anyone with characters, but
I think you are right that it is such a defense thing, that it's such a like fear of being hurt and fear of not being accepted. And I think it's so interesting that that is who Beloved is with Fitz, because that is who Fitz is with everybody else. And so it's really interesting to have this character who Fitz actually is open to that is not being open to them the way everyone is to Fitz. You know what I mean? Like, it just
Right.
feels like a role reversal for everyone else in Fitz's life. And
yet at the same time, it's the most open Beloved is with anybody else too.
Yeah, I know that. And it's hard. I think there is sort of that opening deeper that happens along the way, I think, over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And
especially during this trilogy, they have like lots of arguments and then get closer because of them.
But I think it's true that Beloved is someone different. And I don't know, I'm just really thinking about like the scenes in the later trilogy where Beloved is hurt and in the hidden rooms, and Fitz is nursing Beloved back to health, and sort of who that Beloved is.
Right.
And
I mean, there's a lot of differences in that Beloved, I think, to this one.
Yeah, and to be fair, that Beloved also went through a lot more torture and pain.
Yeah.
And so
Fool has like the worst life in these books.
I mean, truly, no breaks given.
Yeah.
But, well, that's not true. I guess he gets to be a rich lord for a little bit, so.
And was a wood carver for a little bit too, you know?
I mean, Amber's a little bit of a break, but overall, not great. And I don't know. I love the two of them so much, and I love their connection, but it is really interesting the different ways in which they need each other and need the other to do something that isn't being met fully.
Yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because I know in later chapters when Lord Golden and Fitz are arguing, and Tom at the time, I guess.
Yes.
I probably won't be as generous to Fitz's point of view. I'll try to keep it in mind, but I know like it's so frustrating to read from his point of view.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to...
Well, yeah, because Fitz is like too concerned over whether or not Beloved has a crush on him.
Right.
And what that means for their friendship and what that means. It's just like, I don't know.
So, yeah. So at this point, I wanted to address that because I know Beloved is not a perfect character in any sense. And the way that a lot of it is read through Fitz's mind, Fitz is the one that the reader sees who has all the flaws. And it's easier to ascribe the flaws just to the point of view character rather than other people's points of view as well. So I just wanted to get that side of that argument in the future there too. And what some of those aspects of Beloved's character are in my interpretation.
Yeah.
And that defensiveness of characters and things like that.
I'm definitely going to start looking for the character being put on.
Yeah, him like reverting to different things.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's because he does them because they fit in the environment, right? It suits his purpose.
Right.
But also subconsciously, then people can hurt the feelings of Lord Golden or Amber and not Beloved.
Yes.
Because it's a different person. Yeah, so that's our introduction to Beloved. We get him back. We get him for a couple chapters here.
Oh, I love Beloved.
Yeah.
Such an interesting character. I think one thing that surprised me in this chapter is that there is so much depth to the character of Beloved. Not because I think Beloved was ever too deep, but I do know, I think you told me that Robin Hobb once said in an interview that when she was writing the first trilogy, Fool wasn't necessarily an integral character.
At least the first book.
The first book. And then later she decided to like give him more of a role and bring him back and like make him more central to the plot. And so I think about that sometimes and just like, I can't imagine a world where he's not there. And so it is.
Well, neither could she.
Yeah,
really.
Exactly. Fool just kind of takes on a life of their own. But yeah. Good to get them back together. The gang's all here.
The gang's all here. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. If you guys have thoughts on this chapter or on Beloved, please let us know. You can email us at isfitshappy@gmail.com or message us on any of our social medias. isfitshappy on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, YouTube, Podbean, Reddit, any of the other, I don't know, iTunes, podcasts, Spotify. I guess it's Apple podcast, not iTunes.
Yeah, probably.
Whatever other platform you can find, we'll try to get to those comments if we see notifications for them.
Yeah,
I'll
maybe
search
on
the
second
internet.
thought, if you're on the Apple podcast, don't do that because neither of us have Apple products. So,
Well, I have iTunes. I can log in and check
okay,
the
true.
reviews and comments there. We appreciate any
We do.
kind of communication there. So thank you so much, everyone. Please let us know if you have thoughts.
See you next week. All right. Now we're going to talk about what you guys have brought to our attention. And starting first, we're going to talk about a voice note we got from our listener, Jenny. It's really exciting. Nobody's ever sent us a voice note before. So it was kind of fun to be on the other end of the podcast spectrum. But Jenny talked in to talk to us about Starling and her reaction to being turned away by Fitz, I guess is the best way to describe what happened. But Jenny's theory is that Starling cares a lot about Fitz more than he cares for her. And her reaction and her getting so angry and being
lashing out.
Yeah, lashing out so much stems from her anger about the realization that she does kind of need him more than he needs her.
Yeah, because the whole situation is Fitz says, okay, nope, not interested in you anymore. I'm just going to make breakfast.
Yeah.
We're not doing this anymore. And she's like, oh, you have no reaction to this basically whatsoever. Because we're in his head. He's keeping a tight rein on his emotions, right? He's trying to do the adult thing. It hurts him, but he's just like, we're done.
Right. And because I think Fitz is such an interesting character who has a very strong sense of justice, I guess would be a good way of like right and wrong, and sort of thinks in a more black and white way where this is wrong and so it has to end. It doesn't matter how I feel about it ending. It just has to end. And so he doesn't want to show any wavering to Starling because he's afraid she'll take that and run with it. So he's sort of being very aloof and very non-hurt by the whole situation, just very matter of fact. And I think that ultimately does hurt Starling.
Yeah.
And cause her to sort of chafe about, did this mean nothing to him? Although, a little bit hypocritical of her because she is married. So
Right. Yeah, it's a lot of different effects there because one, Starling espouses that, that bard life, the minstrel life of traveling and not really caring, and her whole trauma in the past, wanting to take control of her sexuality and not caring about sleeping with a bunch of people all the time. And yet her insistence of, justice and virtues, and being surprised that Fitz would kill somebody not in honest open battle.
Yes.
Things like that are just so contradictory. So when she gets to this and she's like, oh yeah, I can sleep with anybody, like it doesn't matter. Then she realizes that she does have an emotional attachment to Fitz and he's not reacting. And she wants him to react and like, no, you do care about me too.
Yeah.
I'll lash out at you.
But
also being mad at him for caring even about the infidelity.
I mean, to be fair, I have been in a situation where I'm mad at somebody and they give no reaction, and that makes me more mad. Or like just in general, like sometimes even if it doesn't make sense, you want a reaction to prove something. It's not a healthy way to look at the world, but it is a way to look at a relationship by saying, well, if you really cared, you would XYZ.
Right.
And in this case for Starling, if Fitz really cared about her, he wouldn't care about her husband.
Yeah, so I really do like that theory and that interpretation of how Starling is reacting here.
Yeah, it is really fun to think about. I think it gives a new perspective to it and sort of explains the anger, and that it's sort of misplaced, not necessarily because she thinks she's fully in the right. It's more just...
I think it's a lot of different things. Of
yeah, I mean, it is
Starling. Combination.
But yeah, so I thought that was a really interesting take on that. And then Jenny also said that Tawny Man is their favorite trilogy.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
It's their favorite.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for that. It's
yeah.
awesome.
And speaking of Starling, there was
Yes.
another sort of theory, I guess, on her reaction more to Hap.
Yeah. Immediately following that scene, basically, when Hap walks in. So Cookie Baker comments on Facebook on episode 251, which is chapter 3, that same chapter with Starling.
Yes.
And our conversation about it reminded Cookie Baker from another conversation they had from another fan when they were speaking together, that Starling is probably triggered from her trauma in the past by Hap, because it reminds her of her lost child from the raid.
Yes.
When she was assaulted and she took too many leaves or the potion or whatever to get rid and terminate the pregnancy and then was left barren, according to her.
Yes.
Hap probably reminds her of that event, also potentially being Raider born. And yeah, it's a kid that she saw and saved. And like, yeah, this could have been my kid growing up. So I'm attached to him and I want him to have a good life. But also just brings up bad memories every time that she's around him.
Right. Which I think is a really interesting thought to bring into this, and does add a really interesting dimension to their relationship, of this weird, and like adds to the weirdness of it, where there is care for him as a human being, because as callous and calculating as Starling seems to be, I think she also is human and does care about others.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think that her helping someone isn't that surprising, but it does explain a lot that there is that sort of wall up between her and Hap when you think about her trauma and what she's gone through and how that would affect how she sees Hap.
And also why she feels so betrayed that Hap could have more loyalty to Fitz than to her, and is taking Fitz's side on this.
Right. When she saved him.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. I think it is a really good callback to what has happened to Starling and what she's going through, and sort of, again, that theme of echoing trauma and how that affects people continuously. It's not just something that happens for a short period of time in your life. It has echoes throughout.
Right.
So I thought that was a really good callback.
Yeah,
so thank you, Cookie Baker.
We have more comments on Chapter 4, episode 252 on Facebook as well. So we're moving up one chapter. This one is The Hedge Witch, so it's where we meet Jinna. And we also had comments from Bastion in this regard about our question about hedge magic in general. First of all, before we get into character stuff here, we were kind of wondering on the nature of the magic, and Bastion is reminding us of something that is said later on that Jinna says, that she knows what it is like to be born with magic and have a sister who is not. So for hedge magic, for hedge witches or wizards, you have to be born with some sort of spark, and then it has to be taught afterwards.
Yeah, because Jinna has a sister who cannot do hedge magic. It just all looks like a jumble of sticks to her sister, whereas with her, it's different. So I thought that was a really good callback. Thank you for that reminder.
Yes. And then also in our discussion with during that episode about the piebalds and their plan for things, Bastion also reminds us it's not just to kidnap Prince Dutiful.
Yes.
It's to forge a connection between the cat and Dutiful strong enough so the human spirit in the cat can partially take over Dutiful as well.
Yes, so that they can, it's literally the piebald story.
Yes.
And I thought that was really a really good reminder. I thought I remembered that, but wasn't 100% sure, which is why I didn't really bring it up. So thank you for the reminder.
And that's a kind of a secret plan that not everyone is privy to.
Yes, not all of the piebalds know that that's the plan. It's just some of the higher ups. But I knew that it had something to do with the possessed cat. I knew that that was a big plot point.
Yep.
And I just wasn't 100% sure. So that is a good reminder that it is also like most of the piebalds do believe it's just so that they can get Dutiful on their side by understanding them, by becoming one of them. But there is that sort of darker thing lurking in a smaller subsection of that group.
Yeah.
So thank you, Bastion. And then Cookie Baker brings up that Hap is totally setting up Tom and Jenna.
Yeah,
So-
and then Fitz still feels guilty for liking her.
Yes, which is so funny because I totally agree. I feel like Hap is trying to work some magic for Tom and just give him a little bit of company that isn't Starling.
Yes. Yeah. And then also Cookie Baker is wondering, how has Hap not read anything of the scrolls that Fitz is writing? Well, true. Like,
Yeah, because
he's writing down his history in some of these.
and he falls asleep and Hap wakes him up, like, and also lives with him, so would have access to the scrolls at any time. I don't know. I mean, it could be that
Some of the things he writes is probably pretty boring.
yeah,
you
it
know?
could just be that the few times he's looked, it happens to be boring stuff that he doesn't care about. But also, I was a kid and I'm very curious. I would probably read everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why not?
Unless he keeps a very, I mean, Fitz is very careful of his secrets, right? So maybe
Yeah.
he just keeps a very secret spot or locked away kind of section of his scrolls or hidden.
I know next chapter, Fool reads the stuff and is very careful to put things back where they're from. And
Yeah.
Fitz notes that it's clear that if Fool didn't want Fitz to know, he wouldn't know that Fool had been going through the things.
Right.
Which implies that he would know if they had been moved, so he would know if Hap had read anything. But that doesn't mean that he hasn't left things out for Hap to be able to read without going through everything.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe
Interesting.
Hap just doesn't care.
Well, we were also talking about skill during this episode a bit, and Cookie Baker has some comments on that and some theories about the skill and about fate and if skill has a consciousness. And
Yeah.
it's kind of relevant to this chapter as well. And Cookie Baker does think that the skill is somewhat conscious and is trying to use the skill users to get to, accomplish its own agenda of bringing back the dragons and therefore becoming more connected to the world as a whole.
Yeah.
Kettle mentioned that being able to control the skill is an illusion. The more you use it, the more it drags you in. One of the ways fate has been messing with the story is that every time someone enters a skill pillar, the stone decides when to spit them out according to its own agenda. I think the skill pillars are made in a similar way to the stone dragons, and the people who put their life into the stone to create it still have some power over it. Which is very interesting. I think we get a little bit of a notion of how to create skill pillars, and I don't think people are absorbed fully into them. But you could, like all of the skill creations, you
Yeah.
put some sort of meaning to them. You put some sort of thought into them, like the skill
Yeah.
road. Like, you are a road, you're beautiful, you're strong, you're steady.
Yes.
You're going to be so smooth for
You're never
people to
gonna
ride
crack,
on.
ever.
Yeah. So that's definitely very, very interesting thought, because I hadn't connected those two things together yet, or hadn't thought about what kind of emotions or urgings that you would have to put into the skill pillar to connect them to things.
Yeah. And especially because it is random, how long it takes. It doesn't
Yeah.
seem like it was always that way.
For skilled users, it shouldn't be random at all, but there are stories about people getting sucked into them, so they obviously have some sort of skill. They're just
Yes.
not trained. They don't know how to exit or whatever, so Cookie Baker's theory is that they're spat out when they need to be.
Yeah, and I do wonder too, because I think one of the times Fitz, I believe it's in the last trilogy, Fitz goes through the skill pillar.
And he's like super exhausted
He's
or wounded or
stuck
something.
in there. Yeah, he's been in there for a month. It's like a really long time from when he goes into the skill pillar to when he comes out.
Yeah.
And during that time, we do get a little bit of thought from him, and there's like presences with him.
Yes.
He feels other people there.
Yeah, in the last trilogy you're
Yes,
talking
in the
about,
last
right?
trilogy.
I think, Verity, I think Shrewd and Shade. I don't think his father is.
No, but it's really interesting to me that there are those presences in the skill pillar,
Right.
and just how that, I don't know, that connection. And
I think it just man, I want to keep it just to this book, but I want to relate it to Wheel of Time as well because I've read all those. So I'll try to keep it to this book and this series. I think the skill stream is like an invisible parallel universe that is connecting everything, right? It's like all around them all the time, and skilled users can access that. And the skill pillars are an open doorway into that. And you can traverse between those two open doorways, kind of like a wormhole. You know,
Right.
you're like
Yeah.
folding the skill stream in half and just poking a hole through it. So when a skilled user dies and their consciousness goes, if they're strong enough,
Right.
because it's been explained before, if they're strong enough, they can collect things to them.
Mm-hmm.
They can exist in the skill stream. I think when you're going through the skill pillars, you're touching everything around you that's on that world all at once. So you can, you know, bring those things that were close to you.
Yeah.
That's kind of my thought on the skill pillars, at least. A brief thought of how they work.
Yeah. I don't know. It's all interesting though, and I really like the idea of the skill being conscious in a way and being its own thing. I think especially because it's this trilogy where Fitz feels that presence, that like in the skill, some sort of, I think he always describes it as a father. Is it always the father or the mother?
It's the mother.
The mother.
Yeah,
okay.
the mother-like presence. Dutiful says it's a father-like presence because it's either two separate things or they both interpret it as what they missed the most out of their childhood and what they needed most.
So either way, I feel like potentially that could be the skill itself. You know, like if it has its own will, that's the will. It could be Saw, it could be Ida and Elle, who knows? But maybe it is the skill. Maybe the skill has its own consciousness and is the creator in a way. And I don't know.
I think those beings are collected souls throughout the years that have just gotten really big. And so people can interpret that as they want because there are so many individual thoughts and feelings from them that they have all those experiences. They're probably the skill coteries that, you know, submitted themselves to be stone dragons or whatever.
Right.
Well, or maybe those coteries are just trapped inside the dragons and they're not joined with the skill stream. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, it would make sense Verity being in the skill stream because of how much literal skill, physical skill he was touching.
Yeah.
That some of him would also go into the stream and he wouldn't be fully trapped by the dragon.
I guess that does, put aside the theory that they're trapped. So
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Anyway, kind of ventured away from the point, but
that's all right.
Thank you for that, Cookie Baker.
That's the point of the podcast here.
Just us going on tangents.
Yeah, to talk to you, you know, about the skill. So you get to hear us.
Yes. All right. Then I'm going to go back to a different voice note we got from Jenny on Instagram.
Yes.
This time about
the interaction with Baylor.
Yes, the interaction with Baylor. So this is from chapter 4.
Mm-hmm.
And how Jenny didn't think Fitz was being dumb when they read it.
Yeah, because we had talked about how Baylor was passive aggressively and hinting at him stealing or taking the piglets, right?
Yes.
And we were like, he's so obtuse about
in our readings,
catching this.
Yeah, our readings, it wasn't that Fitz was purposefully trying to dissipate the anger or the accusations. He wasn't trying to, assuage the, weirdness forming. He just was genuinely caught unawares that Baylor was trying to accuse him of something in a roundabout way.
Right, yeah.
So the way we read it, he's just being obtuse. And that is not how Jenny read it.
Yeah.
Jenny talked about how, like I said, that it was more of just Fitz trying to dissipate the anger
and the tension of the situation and try to just like calm everything down and be like, no, I don't know anything about this. So I thought it was more purposeful.
Yeah, and it was on purpose. However, sort of agrees with us after hearing our take, but still thinks it was a good call, whether it was on purpose or not, to
Yeah.
sort of try to bring it down and say, I'm so sorry that happened to you. It's,
But I have no idea. Instead of,
yeah,
immediately going defensive and like, no, I didn't do that.
yeah,
Because,
it makes him look better.
yes.
It is a good reaction to have because it kind of gives that illusion of innocence. Although he is innocent, it was not Fitz or Nighteyes, I'm pretty sure.
Right.
But yeah, so it is a good call, whether or not it's purposeful. And Jenny wasn't alone in not seeing that take.
Right. Yeah.
We actually got an email from Melissa, who also said that she read it as Fitz just sort of trying to ease tension.
To me, Fitz had already had a few stinky interactions with his neighbor, enough to know that to have his guard up and be ready for slyness. I thought Fitz was playing the neutral neighbor in hopes that Baylor would leave off the passive-aggressive trail. That everyone around him was sensing tension from the very beginning made me think of the way a person might choose to stay neutral as a way of pacifying obvious passive-aggressive comments. I didn't sense that Fitz was originally being obtuse. Yeah, so Melissa takes kind of the same stance that Fitz is trying his best socially to just diffuse the tension in the situation and just play neutral. Like, I know Baylor is usually up to no good, so let's just keep it safe, keep everyone calm. And that's a very interesting and it's a very positive read of Fitz. Because while I could maybe agree with that happening if he was still in his teens before he had been isolated, in his head now while I was reading it, I really am sticking with he wasn't really understanding what was happening. I really think he was kind of slow on the uptake in the chapter. I don't know. That's just kind of the stance I'm siding with still.
I definitely see both sides. I could see it as him, I'm not giving him enough credit. He did understand what was happening.
Yeah.
And I mean, for sure, it makes sense if he did to not, because Fitz isn't really a fly off the handle kind of guy. But I think it makes more sense to me that he didn't catch it, because once he realizes what's going on, or when I believe he realizes what's going on, which is about the third time Baylor's like, so you sure you didn't see anything?
Right.
He does sort of resort to that anger and talk about how he's been bullied before to the point of almost death.
Yeah.
And that has changed him. And now he wants to be the aggressor and be more aggressive so that people coming at him are too scared. And so that's why I think it truly lends into this sort of, he didn't know what was happening.
Right. Yeah.
But we could be wrong.
We could, yeah. It's up to interpretation as always.
Yeah. So good to have both points of view. Melissa also talks about
the current chapter that we're on.
The current chapter we're on.
The
Right
Tawny
ahead.
Man.
Love it.
Yes. Preempting it, which is great.
Yes.
Basically saying, is there anything more beautiful than Beloved and Fitz's reunion? And laughs aloud at the sharing of the horse. Basically, like it's handing over the keys to a running Ferrari, going vroom vroom, hop in, take it for a test drive.
Which is true. It does give that vibe. I love that. But also talks a little bit about how Fitz's restlessness is really interesting and something that they relate to a lot, because sort of having that steady rhythm for a while is peaceful and good, but then something about it sometimes is just chafing. You grow out of that need, and there's nothing worse than having that chafe on you and knowing it's time to go and not being able to go and just needing to wait it out and sort of wait until you can fully shed that skin, so to speak.
Yeah, and then also kind of commenting that when Beloved comes back into his life, it is sating a thirst that he didn't even know that he had. There's something that was missing from his life that comes back into it.
And it makes sense that he isn't aware of the chafing until those good parts of his childhood come back.
Right, yeah.
And so it is reminding him there's other things out there and he doesn't have to be trapped here.
Yeah. And then Melissa also comments on how Fitz is feeling so old. It occurred to me this chapter why Fitz thinks himself so old at 35. I know you young ones do not yet know what 35 can feel like, and I assure you there is nothing so bleak as Fitz would have you believe. Well, okay, I'm 32, and I have been dealing for about a week and a half with like a muscle twinge in my neck, like a muscle strain, and I think I got it just from sleeping wrong. And I have been like downing Tylenol and having hot pads on there, so I'm feeling my age. Fitz, I get you. Maybe it doesn't contend, like Melissa says, with like the lifetime and a half that he shared through the wolf, being like near death, and his own life of dying and torture.
And torture and all the injuries and war.
But I relate to you, Fitz. I'm getting old too. But yeah, it's Melissa says that it's no wonder that Fitz feels ancient to himself. He's already lived 2.5 lifetimes between himself and Nighteyes.
Yeah, and Nighteyes is old. Nighteyes is old for a wolf.
Yes.
And is feeling that age now, and maybe that's rubbing off on Fitz a little bit. Just that feeling of, wow, I've really lived a long time, because Nighteyes has lived a long time for his kind. And so that sort of lends to it. But ultimately, Fitz has a long way to go, and 35 is not old.
There's also the fact of his memories and his feelings going into Girl on a Dragon too. We haven't really talked about that much in the last couple episodes, especially with him relating to him feeling old. Because I believe when he gets them back, yes, he sees everything in like bright greens and colors, and like he feels the hurts of pains and things more keenly, but he also feels more alive. Yeah. He also has that spring in his step and like, all right, the world's my oyster now. Yeah. I can do things. So I think it kind of aged him earlier as well, just being more melancholy and dulled life. And like, I just feel the hurts now, and the joys aren't as sharp, but I can feel new pains.
Yeah. And then finishes off this chapter's thoughts with the boundless love that Fitz is capable of, especially when it comes to Beloved and Nighteyes, because with Nighteyes, we have him wanting to share Nighteyes' pain while he is himself holding back his own pain. And just that sort of love that he has, that he is capable of giving, and seeing that. And it's just so tender.
Melissa says it's one of the most beautiful sentiments of love that they've ever seen simply written. And it is. It's not like flowery language or anything like that. It's just a hope and a wish of just like, oh,
let me share your pains.
Yeah, let me share your pains. You can't take mine.
Yeah, let me take on yours.
Yeah.
And I think, it is a really cute sentiment. And then also the touch on Beloved with agreeing with me a little bit on Death of the Author, that
Robin Hobb relationships.
Yeah, Robin Hobb has said that there is no romantic relationship between Fitz and Fool, that there's no romantic feelings.
I don't want to misquote her at all.
Yeah.
I should probably look into the exact things that she said about it. But for now, we'll characterize it, there's no romantic feelings from Fitz to the Fool. I don't know if she's commented on both ways or not.
Right.
But yeah.
At least Fitz does not see Fool romantically.
Correct.
And we have Melissa in my camp of, this is romantic love. There's no way this is not a romantic love. The tenderness and the feelings that are behind both of them when they see each other, when they meet up, when they're around each other, that's so deeply romantic that how can it not be? And even if Robin Hobb didn't intend it that way, that's how it comes across. And maybe it's just sort of this different facet of Hobb coming out in the writing of this tender romance that Hobb herself isn't fully aware of it being. But as a reader, Melissa and I both believe it to be deeper.
And you're not alone in that either.
Yeah, we're not alone. So
yeah, Melissa says that maybe say that Hobb has as many facets to her own soul as the Fool, and when writing this particular trifecta, she channels a part of her own soul that knows these ones are as close and in love as any great romance has ever been.
So I like that. I agree. I mean, Robin Hobb would not agree with us, but that's okay. I think, again, it goes back to my belief in the whole Death of the Author thing, where like we're getting something out of it, and that's what we get out of it. That's, how it works. It's how we're reacting to the material in front of us. So, yeah.
Thank you very much for that. Do we have any more comments on Facebook or anything? Oh, we have one from Spotify here.
Yes.
From PBPF. So they commented on our topic that we brought up about the short stories.
Yes.
About Willful Princess and the Piebald Prince, but also mentions Cat Meat and says both of those two, Cat Meat and this one, are very important to this trilogy. And we should read them in context. And again, I will reiterate, we want to read all the short stories and we want to post episodes of all of them. I do not know if we'll post them during this trilogy, but we'll probably read those two during this trilogy.
Yeah.
We don't know our full plans on release schedule for all those kinds of things, and we have not read them yet. I will say that again, but we do want to get all the context we can for these books and get all the information that we can about the stories and where they came from.
Yeah. So thank you, everyone who wrote in.
I do want to give a quick shout out to Anna and Vanis for their reoccurring support of our podcast. Don't thank you every week, but just want to let you know we really, really appreciate that.
Yes. Thank you, everyone who writes in. There are a lot of people who write in just kind words, whether that's a comment on Facebook or a private email.
Or agreeing with us.
Yes, but it's genuinely so nice. I just love our little group here on the internet, our little corner, and just how sweet and kind you all are. And even when you guys are writing in to correct us or tell us that we missed something or remind us that we've gotten something wrong, it's always just so kind and comes from a place of all of us loving a thing. And I don't know, I'm just really appreciative of how nice you all are and how eloquently you all write, and it's crazy, and you guys are all so cool. And yeah, thanks for listening to us and sharing your time with us. So yeah, thank you.
Hope to hear more from you guys soon. See you next week.